Get your draft on. Although the 2008 draft is loaded with running back talent, there are quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends that fantasy owners have to keep an eye on. And lucky for you, we've got our binoculars out. How you doing, everybody? Jamey Eisenberg, Dave Richard with you, talking fantasy football, the 2008 NFL draft. Jamey, quarterback class, it's nice, it's not great, and it's certainly not deep.
No, it's not. You know, the one thing that everybody's going to point to is Matt Ryan, because he's going to be the first quarterback taken, presumably, in the draft.
He will. Yeah.
You know, by some team, hopefully somebody in the top 10. Otherwise, we're going to see a big free fall from a guy like Matt Ryan, a la Brady Quinn in last year's draft. But the thing with Matt Ryan is he's a big guy, strong talent. The thing that I like about Matt Ryan is he was successful at Boston College with not a lot of talent around him. Depending on the team that drafts him, whether it's Atlanta at number 3, whether he slips to Baltimore, which, as we know, after Steve McNair retired, they're in need of a quarterback. I think Matt Ryan can be successful. I don't know if it'll happen as a rookie, and I don't know if that means you draft him even as a backup fantasy option this year.
Right. Now, and with most of these quarterbacks, you're looking long-term with these guys. Most of these guys you're probably not going to be looking at drafting. Maybe a late-round pick, definitely a mid-round pick if you're in a keeper league. Let's keep going. Brian Brohm from Louisville. Last year there was talk about him coming out. Would have been a top 10 pick if he had entered last year. Decided to play one more year at Louisville. He did fine. A little injury prone. Some scouts call him robotic. I don't really know what that means. Frankly, if my quarterback was robotic and had a strong arm, I'd be happy with it. Brian Brohm is going to be a good NFL quarterback. Look for him to be taken in the latter part of the first round. A team like a Carolina or a Chicago could trade up to the back of the first round, pick themselves up Brian Brohm. Suddenly they've got their quarterback of the future.
Yeah, there's also guys like, Chad Henne and Joe Flacco, some other guys that could be out there to really help, some teams as well. Some teams like Henne a little bit better than Brohm. You can see Flacco, who's going to be a real project. Comparisons are already out there to Derek Anderson. Sure. Flacco's a very big quarterback. Going to take a while before he's a good NFL quarterback because he struggled at Pitt, was a little bit shaky at Delaware. So I think you'll see Flacco take a long time before he becomes a very good quality quarterback. But quarterback, Dave, is not the only position in this draft.
Well, if you're going to be a good quarterback, you need to have wide receivers to make you a great quarterback. And there are a bunch of good wide receivers in this draft. And the name that's kind of floated to the top of the list, Devin Thomas from Michigan State.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy that I think teams are going to look at and say, this guy could really help us next season right away. Teams that are looking at wide receivers, Buffalo, which needs somebody desperately to play opposite Lee Evans. Tennessee, they're already talking in Tennessee this past week about getting Vince Young some help. They bring in Algie Crumpler, they have Justin Gage, but they could definitely use a wide receiver. I think a team like Carolina, which was looking for wide receivers, may not go in that direction right now, but you never know. Teams that have some aging options, teams that are looking to get younger, a guy like Devin Thomas can be really helpful for one of those teams.
Devin Thomas, just one of the names on the list. Lima Sweet, another one out of Texas, a nice big guy, lots of experience, a little injury prone, should be a good NFL player for years to come. Malcolm Kelly is another name on the list. Now, this guy ran about a 4.6 40, really had a terrible workout at the Combine and at his pro day, even blamed his school for the pro day. But you know what? He's got big hands. He's a nice big target. He kind of seems like an Anquan Bolden type to me, a guy that can really play higher or play faster than his time speed would say. James Hardy. Now, this guy, Indiana, tall wide receiver, reminds me very much of Marcus Colson, just a great red zone target. Whoever gets him, I'm sure they've got designs on making him a red zone threat. James Hardy, a guy you might want to keep an eye on in the late part of your draft, might be a candidate for 6 or 7 touchdowns. One more name on this list, and this is about speed. Jamey, Deshaun Jackson out of Cal.
Yeah, the thing about Deshaun Jackson you have to be concerned of, though, is these Cal products, these guys that are in systems. You talk about Brian Brohm being a robotic quarterback. There's also some concerns about him being a system guy. Same thing with Deshaun Jackson, because Cal produces great offensive players. In college, they don't necessarily transcend to the NFL, and I think you'll see Jackson. He's a little bit on the small side. That's a little bit of a concern. You don't want to see him end up in Buffalo because all they do is draft small receivers, and they don't end up being very productive. So there are some guys that at the wide receiver spot that can help you, but there also are some tight ends as well.
There you go. Yeah, and here's the thing. Not a lot of publicity about these tight ends. Really quickly here. Dustin Keller, Fred Davis. The only 2 names you really need to know about. Keller from Purdue, nice, tall, lean guy, great hands, had a great pro day, had a great combine. Should be as high as he'll be a pick in the top 2 rounds. Might be a low first-round pick. Fantasy-wise, that'll probably translate to a late-round pick. The team that goes up and grabs him, they're grabbing him for his receiving skills. You want a receiving fantasy tight end. Keller's a great backup. And so is Fred Davis out of USC. I watched a lot of him over the last 2 years. Reminds me a lot of Algie Crumpler, but healthier and obviously a little bit faster. Nice big wide body, great arms, should be another red zone target, should be drafted. I think a team like Seattle could really come in, get a player like Fred Davis, and really just they fill their tight end need for years to come.
Dave, when you look at rookie wide receivers, rookie tight ends, even rookie quarterbacks, last year we saw Calvin Johnson was really the only one drafted high. How early do you draft one of these rookie wide receivers?
Well, there's not a lot of hype around most of these guys. There might be a little bit around Lima Sweet or Devin Thomas, but really the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the tight ends in this draft, not the same type of hype. You know, Darren McFadden's got a lot of hype. Everybody in your draft is going to know who Darren McFadden is. Not everybody in your draft is going to know who these guys are.
What about the quarterbacks? Anybody there?
You know, they've got to land in a starting spot. I like Matt Ryan. I think I like Brian Brom a little bit better. Of course, I'm the guy that liked Kyle Bowler a lot when he came out. So, you know, don't take my word for it all the time. But bottom line is this. Neither one of them should be starting for any fantasy owner. So you're probably not going to invest much time researching them in this summer, preparing for your drafts here on CBSSports.com. Speaking of CBSSports.com, you can email us anytime, dmfantasyfootball@cbs.com. Hey, we're going to be having a live blog on draft day, so be sure to be here on the site. Get instant fantasy analysis on every single pick, even the offensive linemen. Yeah, they've got a roll, and if you want to know why, you better be here on Saturday and Sunday during the 2008 NFL Draft. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Dave Richard. Thanks for coming out.